He had tested her during the first meeting, and then he tested her again. However, Arlenne believed she just needed to prove that he didn't need to do this. Arlenne said, "Since you wanted to, then stay. Come over." It turned out Kasabin couldn't sleep because he kept dreaming about the people he killed. They appeared before him, covered in blood, questioning why only they had to die. Arlenne comforted him, saying, "But it's not your fault." He responded, "But I killed them. That's a fact." She added, "At least you feel guilty for these deaths, right? Besides, you were protecting yourself." Kasabin seemed to reflect and said, "It's the first time someone has spoken to me like this." She said, "What kind of life have you lived until now?" Kasabin fell silent, only answering after a moment, "Quite ordinary. You probably wouldn't find it interesting." Arlenne didn't press further, stating, "I hope you won't dwell too much on the past, and I wish you won't bear these pains alone because every day from now on, you will be happy." Kasabin grabbed her hand and said, "In the dueling arena, you're the only one shining brightly. Seeing you up close makes you even more dazzling. Thank you for bringing me back." They pretended to be affectionate siblings, with one pretending to sleep and the other watching the feigned slumber. Arlenne slightly opened her eyes, confirming that Kasabin was indeed staring at her. Suddenly, he lifted her hair, making her scalp tingle. He leaned in and whispered in Arlenne's ear, "Sweet dreams." After that, he quietly left. Arlenne thought to herself, realizing he was also a skilled liar, just like she wore the mask of a gentle sister. She acknowledged that, apart from knowing Kasabin was the confidant of the crown prince in her past life, she knew nothing about him. She could only slowly influence him. She would give him everything he desired. The next day, Arlenne discovered Kasabin, covered in blood, kneeling before her father. Her father set several challenges, dangerous tasks like picking herbs guarded by monsters on a cliff. Arlenne asked Kasabin if he was injured, but he reassured her it was just monster blood. Arlenne protested to her father, claiming Kasabin had the strength to pass any test and didn't need this. She even threatened to leave the family if he rejected Kasabin due to his slave status. They didn't expect Arlenne to go this far, even if it seemed unreasonable. She couldn't waste time on adoption issues. However, her father thought she was obsessed with slaves. She continued, "Dad, you like drinking vanilla tea. Most of the slaves who cultivate vanilla were once nobles from other countries. Because their nations were suddenly conquered, they lost their titles and properties, becoming slaves. Titles are such elusive things, like a midsummer night's dream or snowflakes in the winter, fleeting. Kasabin is just like us. I hope you can agree to adopt him." In the end, her father couldn't resist his daughter's persistence and had to agree. Arlenne apologized to her father and hugged him, and Kasabin became her brother, despite her father's disapproval. Late at night, the man, covered in terrifying scars on his back from bathing, had Arlenne's words from the daytime echoing in his mind. She even threatened her father to adopt him. "Arlenne," he murmured, "what a strange woman." Recalling that night, Arlenne pretended to be asleep while Kasabin did something reckless, lifting her hair because he was curious about how she looked when angry. He deliberately came to her at night, but she seemed indifferent. Compared to her, he felt like a mischievous child. However, for him, the only goal was to use everything available. The next day, Arlenne went to the armory, keeping her promise to gift her brother a sword. The shopkeeper was very enthusiastic, praising her good taste. The sword was said to have been used by the heir of the fallen kingdom Highland. Arlenne doubted its value since it had been sitting there covered in dust. After the quoted price, she understood why the sword hadn't sold, but money was not an issue for her. After dinner, she went to find Kasabin, and, after waiting for a while, he appeared, apologizing for not hearing her knock due to being in the bathroom. He asked about the sword, and Arlenne smiled, suggesting he open it. Kasabin was slightly stunned, asking, "Where did you find this sword?" Arlenne replied, "Just at a nearby store. As soon as I saw it, I felt it suited you, but it doesn't come with a scabbard." Kasabin insisted it should have one. Arlenne found his sudden knowledge surprising, but he awkwardly explained it, saying, "Short swords like this usually come with scabbards, especially such a good one." Arlenne claimed the shop owner mentioned it was lost a long time ago, rumored to have been used by a prince. Kasabin lowered his gaze, and Arlenne said, "So, do you want me to order a scabbard for you?" Kasabin replied, "This is a gift from you. It's better to keep it as it is." Arlenne welcomed him once again to the family, and Kasabin hugged her, expressing gratitude. Arlenne, not returning the hug, said, "I'm glad to have you as family, but siblings usually don't hug like this." Kasabin explained, "Is that so? I haven't felt warmth for a long time. I made a mistake." Arlenne coldly chuckled in her heart, thinking, a mistake? How ridiculous. How foolish do you think I am? Well, you can think of me as both gentle and foolish. Then, let your guard down, like watercolor dispersing in water. Late at night, Kasabin couldn't help but ask why Arlenne risked being expelled from the family to make him a part of it. Arlenne replied, because I promised you. You said even if I abandoned you, you wouldn't resent me. But I won't abandon you. Kasabin was surprised, just for that promise? Arlenne added, that's one reason. Also, when you said you hoped I wouldn't abandon you, it seemed like you were about to cry. So, I wanted to make you happy. Kasabin reached out his hand, saying, Sister, I'm truly happy now. Once again, she could feel his obsessive gaze fixed on her face, but this time she chose to fall asleep to help him relax. That night, she dreamed of Damian's ugly face, waking up from the nightmare. Kasabin was nowhere to be seen, and she noticed a missing book on the bookshelf. At this moment, a maid came to report that there was progress in the investigation Arlenne asked her to conduct. It turns out that Kasabin might not have been a slave from the beginning. In the backyard, where the extremely rare blue roses grew, Kasabin, who had never seen such roses before, expressed that they were as beautiful as Arlenne, saying, It's so beautiful that I can't look away, just like you. Arlenne just smiled and remarked that no matter how beautiful it is, it will eventually wither. From that moment on, it became a trouble for the gardener. Kasabin quickly explained that he didn't mean it that way, and Arlenne replied, I know. I just want to tell you that being compared to a flower might be offensive to some people. He expressed that he would keep that in mind, and Arlenne suddenly mentioned that she was missing a book. Kasabin, puzzled, asked, What? Seeing the man pretending to be unaware, she straightforwardly said, Maybe someone stole it, but it's not a very important book. It's the one about northern herbs that you saw last time. Kasabin offered to help find it, and Arlenne thought, so full of lies. The only person who could take the book while I was asleep is you. From the first meeting, Kasabin had been talking in a low voice in her room, displaying a brilliant smile, and the talk after seeing the blue rose, all were fake. Arlenne couldn't understand why this dangerous man was so loyal to the crown prince in the previous life. According to the information gathered by the maid, when he was first picked up by the slave trader, everyone thought he was a young noble. Apart from expensive clothes, his manners and qualities weren't something that could be easily cultivated later. Several weeks later, her father officially adopted Kasabin. Despite her repeated warnings not to let anyone know about his background, no one recognized him as a former slave. Suddenly curious about his parents, Arlenne asked what kind of people they were. Kasabin said, My father is very gentle, and my mother, she is stronger than anyone. They are very good people. Arlenne asked if he had any siblings, and he replied, I am an only child. He then changed the subject, expressing joy about going out with her. Arlenne said, I am happy too. Then she asked, Is there anything else you want? He answered, Rather than those things, I just want to be with you like this all the time. Arlenne thought, Fine. He is doing this again. Arlenne remembered the important matter, saying, A week later is the crown prince's birthday banquet, but father will be inspecting the territories this time, so I will attend on his behalf. Suddenly, Kasabin embraced her waist, saying, Take me with you. Since it's in the royal palace, there will surely be many people attending. I'm worried you might be taken away by someone else. Arlenne pushed him away, saying, I was just about to take you, and you don't have to worry. No one will take me away. Kasabin said, You don't know how charming you are. Arlenne's voice lost its gentleness as she said, Kasabin, as long as you stop testing me, I will give you anything you want. I don't care about those things you keep testing me with. Kasabin said, How could I test you? I just like you so much that I do this. Arlenne said, Is that so? Then, why did you steal a book? I know the book that disappeared 3 weeks ago was taken by you and put back on the shelf. The man who had lied back then, instead of panicking, laughed when his lies were exposed. Kasabin, facing the accusation, remained composed and said, I haven't stolen any of your books. Arlenne continued, Only you have entered my room at night. I thought you had a reason. The important thing isn't that you stole my book, it's that you lied to me. Kasabin asked, Since you know, why not blame me? Arlenne replied, Because you are a cherished family member. Suddenly, he grabbed her. Both of them froze for a moment, but the man quickly regained his smile and said, You are like a redeeming light for me. I won't lie to you again. Arlenne returned to her gentle sisterly demeanor and said softly, Don't do this again in the future. Kasabin stepped forward and said, I just wanted to know what books you read. Arlenne replied, If I had known, I would have told you. Do you want anything now? He answered, I do have something I want, and that's you. Arlenne rolled her eyes. She shouldn't have expected a normal response. After that incident, he didn't come at night for some time. The news of Damian winning the swordsmanship competition arrived, and Arlenne commented that he truly deserved to be called a monster. She wondered if anyone knew he had a heart condition, dragging such a body and still winning. The knocking sound interrupted her thoughts. It's me, Kasabin said. Arlenne asked, Why haven't you come recently? Kasabin replied, Were you waiting for me? Arlenne didn't deny it, and he said, I'm happy that you were waiting for me. Arlenne asked, You used to say you couldn't sleep and had insomnia. Is it better now? Kasabin replied, Thanks to you. I've adapted, but I still prefer being with you. Arlenne said, But you always go back in the middle of the night. He explained, That's because I don't want others to see and make things difficult for you. She straightforwardly said, If you really don't want to make things difficult for me, you shouldn't come to me at night. Kasabin said, But I don't just want to see you during the day. I also like you at night. Your lake-like blue eyes are very charming in the moonlight. Arlenne didn't respond to his compliments, only saying, I'm curious about what you think when your purple eyes gaze into the void. Kasabin reached out to her, saying, My mind is full of you. Arlenne didn't follow her original plan to question him and said, A few days ago, someone saw you going out late at night. What were you doing outside? He replied, I was just taking a walk. It was a blatant lie. Clearly, he didn't return until dawn. The Crown Prince's birthday was approaching, the day she first encountered Damian. Unlike before, this time she wasn't alone. From the moment they got on the carriage, Kasabin clung to her, insisting on sitting beside her and not letting go of her hand. Arlenne asked him to let go, but he leaned against her even more and said, I want to stay like this. I wish time could stand still. When others see you after arriving at the palace, I feel I will be unhappy. Arlenne calmly said, Kasabin, you're exaggerating. I want to know why you're constantly lying to me. But you surely won't answer me easily. I'll wait for the day you open up to me. Kasabin said, It seems you don't believe what I say. Arlenne pointed out, You know, Kasabin, every time you lie, your right eyelashes tremble slightly. Actually, you're not good at lying. Before their conversation could continue, the carriage had already arrived at the palace. As she expected, as soon as Kasabin got off the carriage, he attracted everyone's attention. Arlenne, accompanied by her brother, entered the grand hall of the banquet. The first step of revenge has begun.